My heart froze in my chest like a lump of ice. I discovered the damn thing completely by accident, while climbing to change a burned-out light bulb in the bedroom. From the stepladder, reaching for the chandelier, I glanced at the white plastic housing of the smoke detector by the closet door, and something flashed, a tiny, barely perceptible flicker, like a polished piece of glass. 40 years at First National, 40 years of tracking down fraudsters and shuffling papers, have taught me one thing: inconsistencies always give away. They flicker. I went downstairs, poured myself some coffee in the quiet kitchen, and sat down. My hands weren't shaking. Inside, there was only a heavy, leaden clarity. This couldn't be a trick of the light. This was something else. Something foreign. Alien. I waited until late into the night, until the clock struck 11. I turned off all the lights and sat in the living room for 15 long minutes, listening to the ticking of the old clock. Then, tiptoeing, with a flashlight and an old magnifying glass from a desk drawer, I returned to the bedroom. I climbed the stepladder in pitch darkness, the flashlight beam aimed at an angle and the magnifying glass. And there it was, the lens. A professional one, the size of a pinhead, skillfully mounted in the sensor housing, the work of a jeweler. My heart didn't pound. It sank into a cold lump. I checked the rest, the living room, the kitchen, the bathroom, everywhere. 4 eyes, 4 rooms. Someone was watching, seeing my every step, every sip of tea, every evening as I fell asleep in front of the TV, in my own home. Tyler had installed them. My boy, tall, lanky, with an open smile. He arrived 2 weeks ago with that same bright orange package, radiating kindness and concern. "Grandpa, these old things are dangerous. What if there's a fire?" He fiddled around for an hour. Something clicked and hummed, then downloaded an app to my phone and showed me how it would work. I patted him on the shoulder. "Thank you, grandson. Very thoughtful." He hugged me goodbye, and I smelled that familiar childhood scent of shampoo and teenage energy. How could he? But then a cold voice inside me put everything in its place. Tyler is 16. He won't buy such equipment. He doesn't know how to so skillfully modify the case. He was given it. He was told. And then I remembered. At dinner, 2 weeks before his visit, it was Rachel, my daughter-in-law, who came up with the idea, smiling sweetly, adjusting her napkin. "Dad, these sensors are a hazard. Let Tyler protect himself. He's a bit of a hygienist." Rachel, who had quit her job as a dental hygienist 3 years ago, who now so often dropped by to check in, who always inquired so attentively about my well-being, about my plans. I didn't snatch the cameras. I left them hanging. Every morning, as I left the bedroom, I looked up and smiled at that black dot by the closet door, widely, openly, stupidly. "Good morning," I muttered to myself. "Have a nice day." I brewed coffee in the kitchen, under the gaze of another camera lens, and raised my mug in a toast to an invisible viewer, and waited. They didn't keep me waiting. On the 3rd day, late in the afternoon, Rachel appeared at the door, alone, with a folder in her hands and a smile as sweet as syrup on her face. "Hi, Dad. Just popped in for a minute. Some insurance paperwork needs signing, nothing serious." She walked into the kitchen and placed the folder on the table. Her eyes flickered briefly to the ceiling, to the white plastic case above the refrigerator, and then back to me. That fleeting, barely perceptible gesture held the whole truth. She wasn't checking to see if the smoke detector was working. She was checking to see if I was working. So you sit in your house, all free and easy, and then suddenly, no longer the owner, but an exhibit. An exhibit under the gaze of 4 lenses. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room chair in the dark, smoking a pipe I'd long ago abandoned, the smoke curling up to the ceiling, straight to that very detector above the sofa. And I built a chronology in my mind, slowly, piece by piece, just like I taught young analysts. January. Rachel was organizing my medicine cabinet. Her slender fingers sifted through the bottles, searching for expired pills. I thought then, what a bother. February. "Dad, let's set up online banking. It's more convenient." She sat next to me, her perfume mingling with the scent of coffee, as her gaze slid over the numbers on my account. March. My laptop. "It's terribly slow. I'll show Tyler. He'll clean it up." She took it away for the weekend. April. A physical. She was in the office, smiling sweetly at Dr. Pearson. "You know, doctor, he sometimes forgets if he turned off the stove." I sat like a child, listening to her describe my supposed decline. And then May. Smoke detectors. The crowning glory. The picture came together, clear as a profit and loss statement, with my freedom on the bottom line. She wasn't helping. She was compiling a dossier. A dossier on a frail, confused old man in need of care. Her care. But suspicion alone wasn't enough. I needed facts. Solid, irrefutable, just like the good old days. I started with the matinee. I smiled at the camera in the bedroom, putting on a shirt. I waved at the kitchen lens, stirring my eggs. I feigned the idol of carefree old age. At 10, the phone rang. Her voice, sweet and sticky as molasses. "Hey Dad, just checking in. How are you feeling?" "Great," I reported cheerfully. "Made some oatmeal. Maybe I'll do some gardening later." Her voice sounded unnaturally animated. "Listen, I was thinking of stopping by tomorrow. Some paperwork from the insurance company, routine stuff." I agreed, my heart thumping like a cold hammer against my ribs. After the call, I drove 2 streets over to Harold's. He was a former IT guy, gray as a hawk, and paranoid as blue cheese. His house was a fortress against all things digital. "Harold," I said, "I need your computer. Mine's glitching, and I don't want anyone to know I'm checking it." He nodded without asking questions and led me into his office, littered with wires and old equipment. I spent 3 hours in that bunker. I searched everything. About hidden cameras, about remote access programs. I immersed myself in lurid articles about financial exploitation of the elderly, about power of attorney fraud. With every line I read, a dark, heavy rage grew inside me. Then I searched for my name, Walter Bennett, Hillsborough County, Public Records. And it floated up, like a dirty bubble from the bottom. A petition, filed 2 weeks ago, for emergency guardianship of Walter Raymond Bennett due to cognitive decline and inability to manage personal affairs. Petitioner, Rachel Marie Bennett. My fingers were numb. I printed out the document. The pages were sticky with lies. It said I was wandering the streets, lost, that I wasn't paying my bills, that I was forgetting my name. Attached were witness statements, from Rachel, from Dr. Pearson. It turns out he was taking notes at that appointment. From my neighbor, Mrs. Elton, with whom I'd only talked about her cat. It was all an elaborate forgery. If the court bought it, she would have the keys to everything, to my house, to my life. I drove home, and the world outside the window seemed like a flat, soundless backdrop. Why? Marcus made a good living. They had a big house, 2 cars. What motivated her? That evening I dialed Frank Reeves, former FBI, Financial Crimes Unit. Rude, straightforward as a brick. "Frank, I need to check. Informal, between old men." He called back the next day. His voice was devoid of any emotion, which made it even colder. "Walter, are you sitting down?" "I am." "Your daughter-in-law has serious problems. Online casinos. 2 years and it's been growing. She owes money to some very serious guys from Miami. The ones who don't send reminders, but pay visits in person." "How much?" I asked, and the language seemed foreign. "About 200,000, maybe more." 200,000. The value of my house, divided equally. The value of my entire life, measured in dollars. She didn't just want control, she was desperately trying to plug the hole she was falling into, and she was ready to bury me in it, to save her own skin from those who wouldn't stand on ceremony with her, Tyler, or my son. In her twisted logic, it probably looked like a sacrifice. The silence after Frank's call was thick as tar. I sat and felt reality slowly, irreversibly cracking. My daughter-in-law, the woman I'd known for over 10 years, whose wedding I'd watched with a smile. She hadn't just gotten into debt, she dove into the deepest, darkest hole, and now tentacles were reaching out, to my home, to my son, to my grandson. She didn't ask for help, she chose betrayal, calculated, cold-blooded, and to do it, she used Tyler, his trust, his desire to help. These cameras, they weren't just for spying on me. They were proof of her power over him, over our family, turning love into an instrument. Then I thought about Marcus, my boy, staring at screens, endless lines of code, to provide for his family. Did he know? My heart ached at the thought. The father in me screamed, "No, he couldn't!" But the investigator, an old crow, eaten away by the cynicism of a crow, perched on my shoulder and croaked, "Check everything. Trust no one." She couldn't simply refuse. She had to be caught, captured. She needed a weapon that would leave the court no choice. Rachel showed up the next day, after lunch. The sun was streaming through the windows, illuminating the dust motes in the air, as if nothing had happened. She had a folder and that same smile, sticky as syrup, that no longer fooled anyone except, perhaps, herself. "Hi, Dad. You look good." Her voice, sweet poison. "Thank you, dear," I replied, playing my part. She sat down across from me, right under that same sensor on the ceiling. The irony hung in the air thicker than smoke. "So, these insurance forms." She slid the folder across the table. "Just a couple of signatures. Routine." I opened the folder. My gaze slid over the lines. This wasn't insurance. This was a surrender, a power of attorney. Complete, undivided control over every penny, every medical decision I made. My life, wrapped in legalese. "Looks complicated for insurance," I remarked, my voice even, calm. She didn't even bat an eye. "Oh, now it's all consolidated. It's easier for all of us." The lies flowed so easily. "I see." I picked up the pen she'd thoughtfully placed nearby, a cheap blue refill, the instrument for signing a death warrant. I hovered it over the line. I saw her pupils dilate, her whole being lean forward, seizing the moment of triumph. Adrenaline surged in my throat. "Actually," I said, setting my pen down with a whining sound on the table, "I want Tom Whitfield to take a look first, just in case." The smile on her face cracked like fine porcelain. "Your lawyer?" "Yes, Tom. He handled Helen's estate, a stickler for pedantry, to a fault. He's picky about everything." I shrugged, feigning the mild irritation of a good-natured old man. "If it approves, I'll sign it tomorrow." Yellow spots of tension appeared under her makeup on her cheekbones. "The thing is, Dad, the filing deadline is Friday. The insurance company has a deadline." She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping on the tiles. "You know what? Let me call. I'll check about an extension." She practically ran out onto the porch, slamming the glass door. I watched from the window. She thrashed across the boards, the phone pressed against her ear, her free hand cutting the air with sharp, abrupt gestures. Her face was contorted with anger and panic. This wasn't a conversation with the insurance company. It was a report, and it looked like she was being scolded. When she returned, she was a different person. The sweet mask had slipped, revealing the steel and despair beneath. "Dad," her voice choked, "I really need you to sign this today. It's critically important." "Why?" I asked simply. She gasped, as if she'd been punched in the solar plexus. "Because I'm trying to protect you," she blurted out. "You've become confused. You're forgetting things. I'm afraid for you." "Am I confused?" "Yes." She collapsed back into the chair, leaning toward me. Theatrical, false concern oozed from every pore. "Last week you called Marcus and asked him what day it was 3 times. And the week before, you left the stove on. Little things, but they add up." "None of that happened, Rachel." My voice was quiet, but it echoed in the kitchen like a gong. Her face hardened. "You wouldn't remember. That's the whole problem." And then I looked her straight in the eyes, coldly, without a shadow of a doubt. "I remember everything," I said, enunciating each word. "I remember you sorting through my pills. I remember you sitting next to me while I entered my passwords at the bank. I remember you taking my laptop away for cleaning." I paused, letting each memory sink into her like a knife. "And I vividly remember your son, my grandson, installing your cameras in my smoke detectors." The color drained from her face, leaving only a white, sickly fright. She looked as if she'd been stabbed in the ribs. "I know about your guardianship petition, Rachel," I continued, each word falling like a stone. "I know about your debts, about the Miami firm. I know you wanted to declare me a decrepit old man so you could pit all my money like a plum and give it to those who threatened to break your legs." She jumped up so abruptly that the chair crashed onto the tiles. "You don't understand anything. You're a pathetic, senile old man, and you need help you refuse." I didn't argue. Slowly, deliberately, I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I touched the screen, and her voice came out of the speaker, unnaturally loud in the tense silence of the kitchen. "I just need your signature in a few places, the usual stuff." Her eyes widened in pure, animalistic horror. "You can't!" she screamed, her voice breaking into a shriek. "Secret recording is illegal in Florida. You need consent from both parties." "Absolutely right," I nodded, feeling a cold, steely clarity. This file won't be admissible in court, but you know what will? The recordings from your own cameras. The very ones you embedded in my sensors. They caught you slipping me forged documents. And they're recording this sweet family conversation of ours right now. She froze. Her gaze slowly, with incredible effort, crawled upward, to the white plastic case above the refrigerator, to the very lens she'd been watching. An understanding flashed in her eyes. Complete. Final. The trap had snapped shut, and the mechanism was her own hands. You've known since Tuesday, she whispered, and there was nothing but emptiness in her voice. I smiled at your cameras for 3 days, Rachel, and saved everything they filmed, including that visit last Wednesday, when you, thinking I was asleep, rummaged through my desk for 20 minutes, looking for a will or maybe savings books. Her breathing became uneven, ragged. Her whole being trembled. You don't understand. They'll kill me. They'll hurt Tyler, Marcus. I had no choice. I was the choice. My voice broke through for the first time that evening, hoarse with suppressed rage. You could have gone to your husband, to the police. Instead, you chose to destroy me, with your own hands and the hands of my grandson. Dad, please. There were tears in her voice, but now they filled me with disgust. I'll withdraw the petition. I'll disappear. Just don't tell Marcus. I rose slowly. My old knees creaked, but I stood up straight, looking down at her. My son deserves the truth about the woman he shared his life with, and you deserve the consequences. Every single one of them. And as if on cue, the door opened behind her. Marcus stood there. His face was ashen, shattered into 1,000 pieces, and behind him, 2 figures in formal suits, Detective Sarah Vance and FBI Agent Michael Torres, the man I'd agreed to meet the day before. Rachel turned around. She saw her husband. Marcus. It was a groan. He didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on me, filled with unbearable pain. Dad called yesterday, he said quietly, speaking to the void between us. Told me everything. I didn't want to believe it, until Detective Vance showed me the footage, from the security cameras. Marcus, please. Finally, he turned his gaze to her. There was no love or pity in it, only icy, bottomless disappointment. You installed cameras in my father's house. You used our son. You wanted to steal everything from him. I tried to save US, she screamed, but it was the cry of a cornered animal. Agent Torres stepped forward, his movements precise and emotionless. Rachel Marie Bennett, you are under arrest for attempted fraud, financial exploitation of an elder, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. Her hands, the same ones that had so carefully sorted through my pills, were pinned behind her back. She sobbed, resisting as they led her to the unmarked car. Tyler, she sobbed, turning around. What will happen to Tyler? I stood in the doorway, feeling the evening breeze cool on my cheeks. I'll take care of Tyler, I said, making sure she could hear. I'll take care of my grandson, unlike you. The car pulled away, taking her away, taking the nightmare of the last few weeks away. The neighbors watched from their porches. I couldn't care less. Marcus remained standing in the middle of my kitchen, under the sights of that very same sensor. His shoulders were shaking. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I should have noticed. I walked over and put my hand on his hunched back. I know, son. Sometimes those closest to you are better at hiding their true nature than any con artist. I've been leading them on for 40 years, and yet she almost got me. What do we do now? He asked, his voice filled with the loss of a boy. Now we'll be with Tyler. He needs us both now more than ever, and we'll make those vultures who came for her go away, forever. And then he hugged me, tightly, desperately, like in childhood, when the world seemed too big and scary. I held my grown son, and we both understood that our family, wounded and betrayed, had just taken the first step toward becoming real again, even with scars that will never fade. Time is a strange healer. It doesn't erase pain, but dulls it, turning it from a sharp knife into a dull, aching heaviness at the bottom of my soul. 6 months had passed. 6 months since the day the car took Rachel away, and my life split into before and after. She made a deal. She pleaded guilty to avoid a jury trial, where I would have been the star witness. 5 years in federal prison, for fraud, for exploitation. The figure seemed simultaneously enormous and ridiculously small. Her debts to Miami gamblers remained her problem, Agent Torres, dry and professional, reported that the firm had been shut down in a different, larger case. It turns out the world sometimes has its fair side. Marcus filed for divorce immediately. The proceedings were quick, painful, but without unnecessary drama. Full custody of Tyler. Even her lawyer didn't contest it. My son lives in the same house, but he's become a different man, matured overnight, and quieter. And Tyler? Tyler comes every Sunday. At precisely 10 in the morning, I hear the rumble of the old 1998 Honda Civic he bought with his own money, while working part-time at a pizzeria. We don't talk about his mother. We talk about cars. I teach him to change the oil, check the brake fluid, listen to the engine, hear its healthy beat and the odd noise. I teach him to maintain what's his, to care for it. That's my love language now. Wrenches, rags, and the smell of motor oil. Last week, as he lay under the car and I handed him the tools, he suddenly said, his voice muffled by the metal, "Grandpa, I'm sorry about those gauges. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know." I crouched down so I could see his face. "I know, son. You wanted to help. That's all that matters." He crawled out, wiping his eyes with the dirty back of his hand, leaving a black streak down his cheek. She said you were getting forgetful, that you needed to be watched, that it was for your own safety, and I believed her. A lump formed in my throat. Sometimes those we love most lie to us. The worst betrayals always come from within. It's not how you're deceived that matters. It's what you do when the truth comes out. He nodded slowly, his childish face already losing its childish features, acquiring the hardness that comes with a wound. Can I still come on Sundays?" I placed the rune on his shoulder, firmly, so he could feel the support. "You can come every day. This is your home, Tyler. Always has been and always will be." But I couldn't just sit in this house, even cleared of cameras. I found a support group for people like me, for those betrayed by their own. And then I began speaking. In community centers, in libraries, in front of dozens of gray heads. I told our story. About the warning signs, about sudden care, about papers that needed urgent signatures. After one such performance, 5 families contacted me. I was actually able to help 3 of them. I taught them how to document, where to go, how to find an honest lawyer. This became my new business, my atonement and my weapon. Last month, at 7 in the morning, an unknown number rang. A woman's voice, trembling with fear and age. "Mr. Bennett? My name is Dorothy Walsh. I'm 74. I found your number on a forum. I think my nephew, he installed my new thermostat, and I found something in it, something shiny." "Tell me everything, Dorothy," I said softly, and I listened for 45 minutes. A story I knew by heart, word for word. Only the names and details were different. "Write everything down," I told her at the end. "Take photographs. Don't tell anyone until you have evidence. Call me tomorrow, and we'll find you a defense." "But why are you helping me?" she asked, confused. "We're strangers." "Because 6 months ago I sat exactly where you are," I replied. "Alone, in complete darkness, and wondered if my own blood was trying to wipe me from the face of the earth. Someone reached out to me then. Now I reach out further. I'm sitting on my porch. Sunrise over Florida is always a sight to behold. The sky flashes orange, then pink, like a wound slowly healing. People sometimes ask me, do I regret it? It's a difficult question. Do I regret that my grandson doesn't have a mother at home anymore? Every day. Do I regret that my son went through the hell of betrayal and divorce? More than I can express. But do I regret protecting myself from the man who wanted to reduce me to a feeble shadow, a bank account on legs? No, not for a moment. Not for a single beat of this old, yet still strong, heart. In the Bible, in Proverbs, there are words. The prudent man foresees evil and hides himself. I saw evil, and I hid behind the truth, behind facts, behind cold clarity. Self-preservation isn't selfishness when you're being hunted. It's duty, wisdom. The same instinct that makes you recoil from the edge of a cliff. Family should be a fortress, but when a fortress turns into a trap, you have the right to break down the door. The first smoke alarm, the one in the bedroom, lies on my desk. The camera inside, dead, but clear. I look at it every morning. It reminds me, be attentive, Walter. Notice what's out of place. Trust that cold, quiet voice inside when it whispers that something is wrong. They're counting on our gullibility, on our hesitation, that love and loyalty will blind us. They're wrong. I'm 67. I've lived my life, raised my son, buried the love of my life. I've earned the peace within my walls, the freedom to make my own decisions, even the wrong ones. No one has the right to take that away, under any circumstances. And if you're reading this, and something heavy and unpleasant sinks inside you when a caring relative shoves papers under your nose, trust that feeling. Write them down, save them, seek help. Don't wait until it's too late, because the worst storms don't come from the ocean. They brew in the silence of our own living rooms. I look at Tyler's photograph on the shelf, at his smile, which is returning to him again, bit by bit. This is what I fought for this future, for the right to be his grandfather, for the right to pass on to him something more than money, principles, honor, attention. Rachel wanted to take it all away. She failed, because I noticed a tiny glint in the plastic casing, because I was attentive until the end.